They don't tell you if they put you on a no-fly list. You're not allowed to know until the next time you try to fly, and then they take you off. What did he have? He had a bottle of grape jelly. What did they think that was? What does grape jelly look like that is a possible threat? I really don't understand. Did they think he was trying to ship live anthrax? No, that's the Department of Defense that does that on a regular basis. Or weaponized bubonic plague. No, they did that as well. Shipping that through UPS. They don't fly commercial airlines. They use UPS to ship their live bioweapons in the mail. But what if he had shown up at the airport with a suitcase bomb, like Ahmed Mohammed, the 14-year-old kid, or I think that's his first name, his last name's Mohammed, the 14-year-old kid that Obama is going to honor at the White House. What if you took something that looked like that to the airport? I'm not recommending you do it. They will probably haul you off and no one will ever hear from you again because we don't have anything such as due process anymore in this country. Can you imagine if you took something like that to the airport and ran it through their screeners? I mean, maybe they wouldn't notice. I mean, it is, after all, security theater. It might just sail through and nobody would pay any attention. But if it did get drawn to their attention, I guarantee you, you wouldn't get an invitation to the White House. I guarantee it. And of course, as we've mentioned over and over again, Obama has no problems whatsoever with an out-of-control police department that is encamped in our schools. I can't even believe that we have that in the schools. It is so far removed from anything that I grew up in, anything that my wife taught in, and that was just a couple of decades ago. We are so rapidly falling into tyranny. I can't understand why only half of the people believe that the federal government is an immediate threat to freedom. It's not a threat. It's already taking your freedoms. It's already telling you that everything you have has to be sacrificed to national security. Not just your money and taxes, but also every right, every bit, because your rights are property as well. It's not just your money, your property to go to pay for an out-of-control government that is involved in war after war after war. And I want to talk about that in just a moment. But let's first talk about the boogeyman in Russia. Of course, this story came out on RT, and they're talking about the government there is going to ban GMO food production in Russia. They have already they've already banned the importation of GMO food. They said a group of MPs backed by Parliamentary Majority Party United Russia drafted a bill that severely restricted the imports of genetically modified agricultural produce and completely banned its domestic production. Now, this is after they say this draft has not passed through the parliament, but later in the year, the State Duma approved a package of amendments imposing fines on businesses that sell products containing GMO without adequate labeling to warn consumers. What a difference. What a difference. Why is it that in this country, even people who typically stand for informed consent, stand for choice, stand for freedom, people like Rand Paul would support the DARK Act? That's what we call it. Forbidding state governments from telling people honestly what's in their food. We're not even allowed to know. So not only are we allowed to have this stuff put into our food, they're going to try to ban it in Russia, but we have people who are trying to facilitate it, trying to hide the fact that this is in the food. Why do they not want it on the label? Because people don't want it in their food. It's just honesty. It's not overregulation, because the government should be there as a referee to prevent force or fraud. That's what I agree with as a libertarian. I think government ought to be there as an honest referee to stop people from robbing you, using force on you, or ripping you off. When they steal from you, when they deceive you, then they ought to go to prison. If we're going to use government, that's what we should use it for. Have an honest, open, free market where people know what's in their food. But they call it the Safe and Accurate Food Act. It's not at all that. It's an attempt by the federal government to shut down any information about what's in your food. And it is a violation of the 10th Amendment. When Rand Paul was defending this, he said that he was torn between the two because there were really bad pieces of legislation that were working their way through in the state legislatures, but he didn't like the idea that the federal government was going to do it. You know what? I don't either. Because the 10th Amendment says that unless they specifically are given that power, they don't have the power. We ought to be eviscerating the FDA. If you ran on a platform where you said, I'm going to stop the FDA from withholding drugs from cancer patients, that would be huge. Do you hear me, Donald Trump? I mean, you're about the only one that has the courage to say something that radical, because the rest of these guys are just going to toe the corporate line that we've seen from the big mega establishment. But of course, that establishment, interestingly enough, is pushing hard to get Hillary Clinton in. This is an article up on InfoWars today. Establishment Democrats are working hard to push Clinton over Sanders. Now, this is an organization, and we've seen not only are they pushing to get her in, but also they're, in many cases, some of the bigger ones are, some of the bigger corporations are starting to abandon Clinton. They certainly don't want Bernie Sanders. They're concerned about Bernie Sanders. I don't think that he's controllable for them, but I think that Joe Biden and Hillary Clinton are. I think Joe is biding his time. I think he's going to pop into the race when we see that Hillary Clinton drops 20 points in a South Carolina poll. That was on September the 9th. We see that the person that picks up those is not Bernie Sanders there necessarily. It is Joe Biden who seems to be picking up this. So the establishment, I think, has got two horses in this race, Hillary Clinton or Joe Biden. And I think that they're going to put themselves behind Joe Biden at the end. I think there's a lot of people who, even though Hillary Clinton is very well connected with the Democrat establishment, I think there's a lot of people in the Democrat establishment that are afraid of her, that perhaps the Clintons could blackmail. I think they're afraid of that mafia. So they look at somebody that probably they could deal with a little bit more easily, like Joe Biden. And I don't support him. I mean, this is just politics, gamesmanship that I see happening here. Now, in the article that we have that Kurt Nimmo wrote today, he said a CNN poll, ORC, I guess the orcs, I guess they're polling orcs, conducted between September 11th and the 19th. If that can be trusted, Clinton is supported by 42%, Bernie Sanders at 24%. Joe Biden, who is yet to declare his entry into the race, is at 22%, just 2 points behind Bernie Sanders. That's why I think he could rapidly take over, because look, this is a guy who, you have to ask yourself, how in the world did a guy from the smallest state in the union, who doesn't really bring any voting bloc or any connection there, he certainly had to be politically connected to get in as the vice president for Obama. And he seems to have a lot of connections. And if you saw the interview that he had with Stephen Colbert, it was a puff piece interview, but he did a great job coming across. Of course, we know that he's prone to gaffes, but that doesn't seem to be a problem this time around. People are looking for someone that they think is authentic, and if you misspeak, that simply makes you sound authentic to them, no matter how well connected with the establishment you are. Now, on the other side of things, even though there are people still in the Democrat Party who are still trying to push Clinton, and I believe that there's others who are trying to drive her out, if they can get her down with this email scandal, that would be something where they could take her down without getting themselves involved. But with her financial backers, we see a couple of days ago on September 19th, USA Today reported that big businesses are abandoning the Clinton Global Initiative. That sounds pretty sinister, doesn't it? The Clinton Global Initiative. Yeah, it's actually is sinister. It actually is a globalist plot. It is a nonprofit arm of the Clinton dynasty, USA Today says. But some of the investment companies, some of the large corporations, the mega corporations that have pulled out of donating to that right now are Samsung, ExxonMobil, Deutsche Bank, HSBC, Price Waterhouse Coopers, the big accounting firm, Hewlett-Packard, Monsanto, and Dow. So some of these high-profile corporations, as they say, might not be the only supporters backing away from association with the Clinton family charitable arm. In 2014, 8 national leaders, kings, presidents, prime ministers appeared on the program for the Clinton Global Initiative annual meeting. Now, this year, only 2 leaders, one from Colombia and another one from Liberia, are on the program. How's that for a drop in your self-esteem when you've just got 2 leaders, one from Colombia and the other one from Liberia? Most Americans probably couldn't find those 2 countries on the map. But nevertheless, I think that's going to move in the way of Joe Biden. Now, on the other side, we've got Carly Fiorina moving up rapidly in the polls. And I want to take a look at that and also what Donald Trump says he's going to spend $100 million to win the presidency. That used to be a lot of money. That used to be the entire amount of money going back to the early days of the American Republic, like 2000. In 2000, George Bush spent $100 million and Al Gore accused him of trying to buy the election. Remember that? Well, Donald Trump could spend that on his own, but that's going to be pretty small compared to the amount of money that people are raising and spending today. Hundreds of millions. I think I think it was the last time that Obama ran. I'm just pulling from memory here. I think it was something like 600 million or more.